1, 2, 3. Hello, good evening. I'm Paul Cox, and this is the first of our weekly What's Up This Week live casts here at Slooh. It really is, the best place to learn to explore space. And the thing I love most about it is that we get to do it together. Now then, as I say, this is the first of this new series of weekly What's Up This Week live casts. And most of our focus in these are going to be short little sessions. And if we've got anything special, we might do a little alert during the week as well. But most of the focus is going to be on the best objects to use the Slooh telescopes for in any particular week. So by that, we're going to be watching the ebb and flow of the night sky week on week as each month passes, and we're going to be focusing not just on pointing the telescopes to those particular objects for that week, but actually we're going to be highlighting Slooh illuminations or anything in the discussion board, so you can go off to the illuminations at the moment. And what are we looking at? Well, the best of illuminations at the moment. We're focused on the Geminids this week. Yes, that's what we're doing at the moment. I'm just got to check a couple of things on the broadcast, make sure everything's going okay. By the way, if you are on the Slooh website and you happen to hear this strange chap suddenly coming on talking to you, this is because we've now got this new audio feature. You can see it up here. You can mute it if you want to, but I suggest you don't. Shouldn't have really told you about that, should I? But what you can do is you'll hear any of our hosts or guests narrating across the entire website, because a lot of these live casts are going to be audio only, and we'll also be playing some music through that player as well. Now, when we've got some stuff that we want to share with you as well on our screens, then you need to head over to the live cast button in the left hand navigation, I'm showing you at the moment, and going up to the space situation room, and you go up there, and this is where the live shows are played out. So if we're sharing anything with you on screen, then this is the place to go. By the way, on some of our shows as well, you can also look at the live image feeds down here as well. Well, that's a nice one from the half-meter telescope. I better not digress. So this week, what are we really looking at this week? We're looking at meteors and winter treasures. Now, meteors, those are the things you can't see through Slooh's telescope. So why are we talking about it? Well, although we're going to focus on what objects look best through Slooh's telescopes, we are going to cover any special backyard observation opportunities too. And of course, this week is the Geminids meteor shower. And my word, it's going to be a big one. This is on Wednesday night. We've got our live coverage, and that's really the best night to see them this year. And I'm going to share with you a little bit more about how you can watch them in your own backyard a bit later on. But just to say, the other things we're going to cover tonight: winter treasures, some of the best deep sky objects that are visible this week. We're also going to be taking a quick look at the objects within the constellation of Gemini. Don't miss Helen Avery's live cast. Helen is our supreme Slooh storyteller, and she's got her weekly show of constellation stories at 9 p.m. Eastern on Sunday evenings, where she's going to be talking about a particular constellation. And tonight, it's about the constellation of Gemini, the twins. So that's at the top of the hour, 9 p.m. Eastern. So she's going to be coming on. I'm also going to be showing you why we should be looking at some objects this week, whereas next week I'll tell you different objects. And what I mean by that, different types of object. And that has to do with moon phases and how that affects how well things look in the telescopes. Now, if you've got any questions for me about any of this, you can post them over in the discussion. So this is where Slooh members go to community, hop up to discussions. You can go through here. We've got our featured threads here. You can go straight over here to one of the links, or you can go over here to livecast, or if you want to talk about to Dr. Paige Godfrey about her intro to astronomy course, you can ask her questions in there for her live cast. But let's hop down here and what's up this week? So you can ask me any questions in here. Cara, my first reservation. Yeehaw! How do I do more? Wow. Hey, Cara. Glad you've joined us. Joined us 3 hours ago. And the Canary Islands is open tonight. So, wow, your first mission must have been so cool. Ciao, Paul. It's our first snow here in Northern Italy. We are snowed out here in the UK too. I'm in the south west of England. Now, this is where I was actually going to show you. This is where you can post any questions for me that you have. But it shows our worldwide community. I think this is really cool. And then you've got Keith. Keith is down in New Zealand. Keith, that's right, isn't it? I always get it mixed up whether you're in Australia or New Zealand. But look, we've got Keith answering questions there for Cara, and we've got Cara from Italy. So luckily I'm on Slooh now. I can use the telescopes. I was excited to get my first reservation and then get to see my star. But then I thought, what else can I do with this image? I haven't found the post that I assume are here somewhere. Well, hopefully you caught my previous show an hour ago when we were looking at my pictures and everything that you can do with your images once you've got them. But anyway, I'll take a look at that post and I'll delve into that a little bit later, Cara. Anyway, where were we? You can ask questions of me or anybody. So if you wanted to ask Helen questions about anything to do with her constellation stories, hop over here, the Celestial Twins, Castor and Pollux, and there's already some questions in there for Helen. I'm so looking forward to it because I've had 2 shows tonight, but I'm going to wind down. It's going to be 2 a.m. here in England when Helen starts her show, but I'm going to be using that to wind down after a day of solar observation with the Slooh Canary Islands Observatory. Well, anyway, let's get on with tonight. And actually, while we're on that subject of what's up this week, we sometimes, or you may have heard, that the sun is at what's called solar minimum. Well, just because it's at solar minimum doesn't mean there's not a whole stack to see. So during the daytime in the Canary Islands, if you see the telescope's button over here in the left-hand navigation go green, you'll probably see this telescope down here, Canary 5, being green as well. So these are the nighttime telescopes, Canary 1, Canary 2, Canary 3, Canary 4. Those are the nighttime telescopes that are all online. That's why they're green at the moment. Canary 5, that's red because it's nighttime. That is the Slooh Solar Telescope. But let me prove to you what I was saying. I'm going to hop over to my pictures. This is where all of my pictures are stored. I'm going to hop over to photo roll. We covered this. If you missed the last little broadcast and you want to know a little bit more about how to use my pictures and the filters and stuff like that, then you can hop over here. These are some of the snaps that I took from the Slooh Solar Telescope just today. And this last one that I took, in fact, you can see during the day, these big prominences, which are these huge jets of plasma, excited gas stripped of their electrons, are being sculpted by the magnetic field. And as the magnetic field changed, both of these prominences changed as well, and I was capturing them as they were changing. So this week, if we think about what's up this week, then make sure you catch some of this solar action in the Slooh Solar Telescope. So I usually give an alert, actually, if we've got some good stuff to see in there. If you go to the telescopes and the reserved telescopes page, you'll see what we call down here on the right hand side, down here, mission control updates. And as you can see, I posted here today, solar activity. We're tracking a large column prominence on the edge of the sun today in the Canary 5 solar telescope. So if you want to see any solar action like that, then make sure you keep an eye on mission control updates. So that's our first thing to see this week. But the other place to look is right here as well. It's what we call Slooh Recommends. Now, these are the objects that myself and Dr. Paige Godfrey, we recommend these particular objects. And quite often they're along a theme. And of course, our theme at the moment is Gemini. Excuse me, I just need to sort out a little bit of tech. Okay, I'm back again. Actually, I needed to cough. That was all it was. You can see here that a bunch of these are all around our theme of the week, the constellation of Gemini, because of the Gemini's meteor shower this week. But what we've got here is Castra's right knee and Pollux as well. So what we've got here are the two twin stars. They mark the head of each of Gemini's celestial twins. Pollux is the brightest star in Gemini, and it's got an apparent magnitude of 1.15. Now, we're going to go through that in practical astronomy next week, and Dr. Paige Godfrey is also going to be talking more about apparent magnitudes. That's how bright celestial objects are. But also, there is Castor as well, the other really bright star, marking one of those sets. And come further down, so these, don't forget, these are the best objects to view in the Slooh telescopes any week. And these change actually day to day. We've got, you know, the constellation of Gemini is really quite bereft of many really cool objects to see. And in fact, there are only two main ones. There's this one here, which is an open star cluster. It doesn't actually have a name like a lot of the open star clusters, like the Pleiades or the Hyades. So the Pleiades are the Seven Sisters, the Hyades as well. Both of those are really well placed to view at the moment. But this open cluster is called M35. Now, we try not to use these codes unless we have to. But when you see a capital M and numbers like that, you know that it's a Messier object. The Messier catalogue is 110 objects, and it's a catalogue that was created by an astronomer in the 1700s, Charles Messier in France. In France, he was a comet hunter. That's what he was looking for. And through his rudimentary telescope, his telescope really wasn't up to very much. A lot of these objects appeared as kind of small fuzzy things, just like comets, the very thing that he was trying to view. So he kept confusing these objects like star clusters and galaxies and nebulae for his comets. So he thought, right, I know what I'll do. I'll create a list of them. I know exactly where they are with the coordinates. Therefore, if I see something, recognize it, look at that, look at my catalogue, I know it's an open star cluster called M35. It's not a comet. But what he landed up doing for us is actually listing 110 of some of the biggest and brightest and actually most beautiful in our modern telescopes objects in the night sky, or certainly in the northern hemisphere. So that is M35, and it's a lovely little open cluster. So make sure that you schedule a mission there. for that. Now there's another object as well in the constellation of Gemini, and this is one of my favorites too. Now conditions have to be absolutely perfect for this object to look good. It's called, as you can see there, the Eskimo Nebula. And this particular type of nebula is called a planetary nebula. And it's a sunlight star that hasn't gone supernova and basically blasted itself to bits. But it's a star much like our sun, or certainly less than 8 times the mass of our sun. And when it gets to the end of its life, it kind of sheds its outer atmosphere as it's burnt off all of its nuclear fuel, the hydrogen and the helium that it's been burning inside it. So these outer shells kind of blast off the star, and what's left is one of these planetary nebulae. Now, it doesn't have anything whatsoever to do with planets, but in the 16 and 1700s, through those rudimentary telescopes, a lot of these objects, like the Ring Nebula, the Eskimo Nebula, they looked like planets through those early telescopes. And that's why, in fact, I think it was one of my local heroes. I live in Bath in the southwest of England, which is where Sir William Herschel lived. And that's where he discovered Uranus, which is quite cool. And he actually coined this term, planetary nebula, but it hasn't got anything to do with planets. But anyway, the Eskimo Nebula, if you capture a good image of this, you can use the Canary 4 telescope's pretty good for this one, because it gives you a nice close-up image of it. It looks just like an Eskimo's parka. You know those hoods that Eskimos wear with fur around the edge? And it makes a cracking image. Now, if you capture a really cool Eskimo Nebula image using Canary 4 this week, share them in the Slooh members timeline. That's that timeline of the best photos on the homepage. So you can share any of your best images on there, on Slooh's homepage. How cool is that? Anyway, look, there's a couple of other objects down here that we are suggesting that you do this week. Now, the one on the right here, we'll do this one first. This is the gold dust star cluster M37, and it's really well placed. And this is in another constellation that Helen Avery is going to look at, I believe, next week, Auriga. So that's quite an interesting one. It's the richest of the 3 open star clusters in Auriga. And tell me, when you capture your images of that, tell me if you can see exactly why it was given that name, the gold dust star cluster. It's unmistakable when you see it. One of my favorite winter objects is down here. It's our last recommendation at the moment, and it's the Orion Nebula. Now, if you have not captured your own image, schedule the telescopes for the Orion Nebula. Use the half-meter telescope, that's the Canary 1, or the Canary 2 telescope, although we actually saw a cracking image of it, didn't we, with the Canary 3 telescope of it slightly early on. But the Canary 1 half-meter telescope, it's our largest telescope, and it is perfect for such a large object like that. So what else have we got? We've got the Tarantula Nebula, and the reason why I left this till last is you won't be able to schedule this on any of the Canary Islands telescopes. This is a southern hemisphere gem, so it's only visible from the Chile Observatory. But I'll tell you, grab an image of that, set up your mission, and it's as easy as coming to this page, pressing that make a reservation button. You can add in a bit of a tag here if you want one. Absolutely. And there it is. So this mission is scheduled for later tonight, a few hours time, on the Chile 1 telescope. You will be amazed. Try and watch your mission for that live, because as it comes in during the live stream of the telescopes, oh, it just takes on so much detail. But of course, if you can't watch your mission live, then you can hop up here, telescopes, my pictures, and your images all appear in here. So make sure that you share your Tarantula Nebula images. Now, I'm going to share with you something else on my screen now. So let's get this up because we're going to take a look to see what else is in the night sky at the moment. So what you can see here is the first thing we've got here actually is the moon, because the moon is a really, it should affect, and it's going to affect the kind of objects that we talk about each week on What's Up This Week. And you can see here, this is the current moon phase. And this is a piece of software, and we'll do some write-ups on this in the discussion boards, actually. So I'm just going to switch off the background program so you can see this a bit better. So this is showing us at the moment what the moon phase is right now. But let's take a look at the entire month. So where are we today? Well, it's the 11th where I am, the 10th probably where most of you are. So tonight it's this last quarter moon. And what we can see here, the 11th, the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th and 16th. So in other words, the coming week is that the moon is in its waning crescent phases. And that's good news for everyone who wants to capture faint objects in the night sky. Galaxies and nebulae especially. So actually for the next 2 weeks, because you can see here the following week is the week of new moon. So there's very, very little moonlight to disturb the view. Now let's just take a quick step back. Let's take a look back here because I want to show you, let's take a quick look at the all sky camera. So I'm just going to hop off to the telescope page. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the telescope page, wonder what that mission is running at the moment. Ooh, M48. I don't know that one very well. Past illuminations, that's where you can find content about other objects. But here we go. Here's our, this is where you can kind of see what the conditions are like at the observatory. And I'm going to hop over to the all sky camera. And there it is. That's a live view from this special low light camera. And you can see there the bright constellation of Orion, almost bang center in the middle of it. And we can see some other bright stars as well. In fact, we can see Castor and Pollux there. Gemini, the very thing that we're going to talk about in a couple of minutes' time. But sky conditions here are really good because the sky is dark. There's no moonlight. But as soon as you get moonlight, you can't image, you can't capture things like faint galaxies and nebulae, because what it does to the, it's like shining a torch basically down the telescope. So you can't see the contrast of these faint objects because the background noise that the moonlight causes is really kind of bad. It just makes the images more noisy. So when you've got full moon phases, you know, like the ones we had last week, then it's best to, you know, and what we're going to cover on these What's Up This Week, on those weeks where we got the moon disturbing our sky conditions, what we're going to be talking about there is imaging planets, imaging bright objects that aren't affected so badly by moonlight, such as open star clusters, globular star clusters, the moon itself, of course, because we get some cracking images, don't we, especially at the moment from the chilly wide field telescope. Has been giving us some brilliant images recently. I know a few of us have shared those over in the discussion board, so pop over there and have a look. But anyway, this week we haven't got any moon to contend with. So let's take another look at this thing. Now, this is called Planetarium Software. So here it is. Just zoom out a bit. And at the moment, this is set for right now. So hopefully what you can see here is near the center of the screen, here's Orion down here. Sorry, in the center of the screen. I better not do that. And this is orientated in exactly the same way as our all-sky camera was. So here we can see Orion up here. So there's a bright star just off from the center directly up. That's in the constellation of Auriga. But that gives us a really good pointer to the constellation of Gemini, the one that Helen Avery is going to be talking about shortly after this show. And I don't know if you can see here. Let's zoom in on this. I'm just going to zoom in here on Castor. And we're going zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. And there we have the constellation of Gemini. There's Castor and there's Pollux. And we'll go back to the all-sky camera and have a look at this. But hopefully you can see there's this little star-shaped thing here. Well, if we click on that, it says object name Geminids. Well, that is the meteor shower that we are going to be enjoying this year and this week. And it is the best meteor shower, in my opinion, of the entire year. But while we're looking at this star chart, I'm going to compare it. So take that into your head, think where the constellation of Orion is here, think where that bright star in Auriga is, the two bright stars, Castor and Pollux are, and let's just hop back to our all-sky image. And there it is. So there you can see the constellation of Orion. There's Auriga up here, the bright star, which means that these two stars that I'm pointing at here, I hope tonight you can see my cursor, that is Castor and Pollux. And that little star thing saying Geminids was just to the right of this star. Let's hop back. So we've got Castor is the right-hand star. Let me just pull that up again. So we've got Castor is the right-hand one, Pollux is the left-hand one. Go back to our all-sky image here. I'm juggling loads of things on my screen. So when we talk about the Geminids, which we're going to do now, because this is our biggest opportunity of things to view this week. By the way, I forgot to say, the reason why I was showing you this in the first place is there's no moonlight. So go for this week, other than our Slooh recommend objects, go for galaxies and nebulae. Because the sky's dark with no moonlight, not until the hours before dawn, which means that it's perfect timing to capture those faint objects. We'll take another look at a few of those. But let me show you this. So this is now 1:30 at night, all right, in the Canary Islands. So if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, this is roughly what your sky is going to look like locally at 1:30 a.m. Now, if you're watching the Geminids Meteors, you can actually see Geminids from shortly after dark, really. You know, by the time it gets to certainly 8 or 7 even, actually, because the constellation of Gemini is just rising. So let's hop back and I'll show you what I mean, because I'll show you in our sky chart. So I'm going to mark where the Geminids are. By the way, we're going to share how you can use some of this software yourself to plan your own missions. And I'm going to stop the automatic time, and we're going to go back in time now. We're going to go back in time. In fact, we're going to go to the Geminids, the night of the 13th, which is a Wednesday night. And actually, we'll go to 1900 there. So this is 7 a.m. Sorry, 7 p.m. on Wednesday evening. And what we can see here, over here in the east, that's to the left of the sky chart, just like the all-sky camera, Gemini hasn't risen, but it's just out of view. So by 8 o'clock local, here comes Gemini, just coming into view. Now, I've just got to check something for the show. Do excuse me one moment. Talk amongst yourselves, why don't you? Starts. Just want to make sure that we don't fall off the broadcast. I'm just going to add in a few minutes. So hopefully I've caught that in time. If you lose me, you can refresh the page and that should bring it back if you're watching what I'm doing on the screen. But anyway, let's go back then to our sky chart. So here we are. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, this is what the view looks like at 8 p.m. And you can just see here the Geminids, what's called the radiant, which is where all of the Geminid meteors appear to emanate from. That's where they start to come from. We go to 9 o'clock, and that radiant has risen in the sky even more, which means that meteors could now be appearing virtually anywhere across the sky. Go later to 10 p.m. and you can see the Geminis have got even higher. And then later still, and later still, and later still. And the reason why people tell you that it's in the wee hours, this is 2 a.m. this sky chart is looking at, and the Geminid meteor shower radiant is directly overhead if you're in the northern hemisphere. And this is why this is now coming into the best time to ever view Geminids, because now we can see Geminids across the entire sky. They can be going left, they can be going right, they can be going up, they can be going down to the south, anywhere across the sky. And also, as the night progresses, as the night goes on, the side of Earth where you are, just in the pre-dawn hours, is kind of slamming directly in. Your part of the sky is slamming directly in to that stream of dust and debris left by the strange asteroid 3200 Phaethon. I'm going to be talking about that object more on Wednesday's show. We've got Dr. Paige Godfrey. Helen's going to be on that. I'm going to be doing that. We're going to be doing some Geminid meteor watching. Now, we've got some live feeds fixed up for that, but if you have got dark and clear skies yourself that night, why not use us as your soundtrack, your Geminid meteor shower watching soundtrack in your own backyard? Because this is the best meteor shower of the year, and we have no moon to spoil the view. So join us for that one. Now, you may hear various people, and you'll read loads of articles, no doubt, this week. Oh, you can see 120 Geminids every hour. You know, you can't really. You know, everybody, for some reason, is always slightly overambitious. You know, that 120 is on, oh, look at that. Sorry, look at that live image coming in from the Canary 2 telescope. No, Canary 1 telescope. Whoa, Bode's Galaxy M81. If you want to discover a supernova, that's a really good galaxy to do it in. Sorry, I digressed. You know what I'm like, folks. You know what I'm like. Anyway, people will tell you that you can see 120 meteors an hour. That would be under ideal circumstances when the shower is at its strongest. If you've got incredibly dark skies. But, you know, frankly, I think even saying 80 an hour would be a good shower. Listen, if you can see 1 meteor a minute, you know you've seen a good meteor shower. So make sure that, you know, when you're meteor watching, it's patience. Patience is rewarded. Because I can tell you, as soon as you look away, that's when you're going to hear everybody else go, whoa, did you see that one? And you will have missed it. So, and the way I like to look at meteor showers is, this is the sky above. Oh, look, we've got a bit of cloud coming in the Canary Islands. That might spoil some missions a bit later on, but let's hope not. But anyway, that's what the sky will kind of look like, because this camera kind of looks up, directly up, 180-degree field of view. That's what I like to do when I'm meteor watching. So I'm just going to check, make sure that show's still running okay on this page. Let's have a look. Yeah, we're still running. We're good. So I like to get a lounger, a sun lounger. That's cool. That's serious. That's a pretty bright image there. Wow, Canary 4. Woo. Blue star. You can see that. There's other great images from tonight. I like to get a lounge chair, and first of all, dress up really warm. Comfort is key. Otherwise, you're soon going to get cold, and you'll have to come in. Wait about, so underneath, warm clothes, blankets, maybe have a flask of hot chocolate out there. Get back on your sun lounger, lay your head back and look roughly up. Doesn't matter really which way you face. A lot of people say face south for the Geminis, but I just go anywhere where I can see most sky, and I look up. And what you've got to do is be very aware of your peripheral vision. Never focus on a particular star because that makes you tunnel visioned. And if you just become aware of that peripheral vision, you'll be really, really surprised at how quickly you can react and move your eyes to a meteor as soon as you see it in your periphery. And I guarantee you that is the way that you'll see most meteors, more than anyone who says just look south or look in this part of the sky, wherever. I just basically look roughly up, and that means you get that same view as our all sky camera is giving us tonight. So telescope page, that's where this was. Scrolling down the page, go to all sky camera, and that's what you'll see in your field of view. And then you'll be really well placed to capture any of the bright meteors that go across. And I'll tell you, you won't be disappointed by the Geminids meteor shower. Now, what else have we got? Now, I'm going to be more specific in future What's Up This Week shows. We've been a bit pushed this week, doing some work on the Chile Observatory, and we did that little recap as well tonight of our practical astronomy series. And now we're going to go into Helen's show in 25 minutes time. So I'm going to stop waffling, but on future shows I am going to be giving you specific targets, and we're going to be talking about those targets both in a bit of science from our illuminations point of view, how they've been dealt with, how they've been seen by astronomers down the ages. Some of you will know that I collect antique astronomical books, and I always go back and I look at how they saw a particular object, say the Andromeda Galaxy 100 years ago, when it was called the Andromeda Nebula, because they didn't know it was a galaxy, for goodness sake. So we'll cover these objects in far more detail, and I'll give you a good list of the very best objects to use. But at the moment, use Slooh recommends, so don't forget, on the Slooh pages, go to telescopes, go to reserve telescopes, and that's where you'll find the Slooh recommend objects, and we'll be updating those this week after the Geminids meteor shower. Now, that's it for me now, but top of the hour, 25 minutes time, we have Slooh's supreme storyteller, Helen Avery, with her live cast in her series of constellation stories. And as I've said, this week, Helen is going to be telling us about the celestial twins captured in the constellation of Gemini. And I'll tell you, this really is the best way to learn how to explore space. Learn about an individual constellation. I've already said to you, there aren't many really bright objects in the constellation of Gemini. But look, we've got two here. We've got the open star cluster Messier 35, and we've got the Eskimo Nebula. We're deliberately doing that because we're tying everything in to the constellation of Gemini this week. So hopefully you'll schedule your own missions to those on the telescopes tonight, and that will stick in your head like it's done my own. M35, Eskimo Nebula, they're both in the constellation of Gemini, with the stars, Castor and Pollux. So it really is a great way of learning the sky. And I think when you learn the myth and the lore behind those constellations, and that's what Helen's going to give us, it gives you that story, and stories are easy to remember. That, for goodness sake, is how the heavens have been, the knowledge of the heavens has been passed down from one generation to another. But anyway, so that's coming up in 20 minutes time. Hey, Helen, I'm going to leave you now. I'm Paul Cox. If you've got any questions for me, throw them over into the discussions area. This has been Slooh, where you can learn to explore space together. Thank you for joining me now, and I'm certainly going to be hanging out and listening to Helen in 20 minutes time. Bye for now.